A lot of you guys that I'm speaking to at the minute struggle with focus, struggle with knowing what to do, when to do it, how to do it effectively. In this video, I'm going to run you through exactly the deep work routine I personally use to grow and scale my business from 0 to 6 figures a year, and then going over to sell over $2.5 million in coaching programs. So yeah, I'm going to run you through exactly how I feel you should be structuring your week, your day to get maximum productivity out of it, so you can make a lot of money, close a lot of clients, and help an awful lot of people. So firstly, I feel like I speak to coaches a lot and a lot of students even as well, where they struggle a lot when it comes to just having too many things to do. They feel stressed, they feel overwhelmed, they lack focus, they lack productivity. And the issue when that happens a lot of the time isn't doing more, isn't trying to post more content, isn't trying to build more platforms and more messages, do more strategies. It's not that. A lot of the time when that's happening, the solution is rather different, and I'll break down exactly kind of what deep work and productivity routine I would personally be following to grow your business in 2025. So that's kind of the biggest stuff I would say. So in terms of where I'd actually start with this moving forward from here on is actually like looking at your current to-do list, and you can do this after the video, but looking at your actual current to-do list, right? What does your list of schedules, what does the actual list look like? Like, do you have a to-do list? Do you have a calendar? Where are all your tasks currently going? Like, what, where are they and what does that look like? And the very first thing I would look at once you look at your to-do list is to realize that us as human beings, we physically cannot focus on more than one thing at any given time. The minute you go and try and switch tasks from one thing to another and you're thinking about different things, you ultimately lose focus, you lose productivity, you lose clarity. And when you lose that clarity, it just takes more mental kind of bandwidth to actually switch between tasks. And that's what inherently holds you back and makes you not be as productive and as efficient as possible. So the very, very first thing I'd look at is not overloading your focus, not overloading the amount of stuff you're trying to do, because the truth is, the moment you try and do more than one thing, the minute you have client check-ins open and you have your content open in another tab and you have 3 or 4 or 5 different things you're trying to do, you're trying to create content and write emails and whatever else, you're just gonna like lose a lot of attention. You're gonna lose a lot of focus between trying to switch between different tasks. And when that happens, inherently, you're just going to waste time, you're just going to waste focus and productivity. So, the very first thing I would say when it comes to your deep work is just think to yourself, before you even open a laptop, before you open your phone camera, just think to yourself, what's the one thing I'm currently doing? How much time am I giving this task at the moment? What is that one task? And, what does good look like when it comes to getting that done? That's the very first thing that I actually prioritize when it comes to this, because the minute you prioritize just having one clear kind of list and one clear task to work through, it will just make life infinitely easier in terms of getting it done and moving that forward. That's the first thing I'd look at. The second thing I would look at is almost operating your to-do list a bit like people, like a bit like the military would and a bit like doctors would, right? One of the very best practices I've taken over the last 2 years from one of my previous mentors. He runs a 7-figure um, e-learning business. He's starting software and he's doing really, really well. One of the biggest things I took on him is he doesn't have more than 3 things on the to-do list at any given time. He's only working through 3 things at any given time. There's literally nothing else on his to-do list. And that's very eye-opening, because if you like just boil down what that does for me and what does it does for my students, when we, for my students actually, what I do is I show them what those three tasks should be for them. Like there's never any more, but it removes a lot of overwhelm. It removes a lot of kind of anxiety, a lot of stress, but it also makes you just really dial in on exactly what's the things that need to be done. and just working through boxing those off. So it does that, right? So that's the first thing that it does, having no more than three things on your to-do list. But the second thing it does is it forces you, right? It physically forces you to make those three things on your to-do list be the absolutely most important things on your to-do list. If you could only get three things done for the day, you're not going to faff around doing stuff that are not, big levers. You're not going to faff around doing stuff that has like, 1% thing or 2% thing. You're going to literally just do the most important things. So if you just have three things on your to-do list, it really forces you to get rid of all the noise. It forces you to get rid of the stuff that's not worth doing. And it just makes you focus on the biggest levers. And that's so, so powerful, right? So that's the second thing it does. Now when it comes to like knowing what should be on this list, like what should be on your to-do list, like where should you take it, and there's a really really kind of powerful thing with this as well that makes an awful lot of difference. Like, there's a really really powerful thing with it. One of the things that's really powerful with just having like no more than three things on the to-do list is it forces you to just have things that the biggest levers. But like, what should those levers be? Like, what should be the mindset behind? Like, what should you be doing? Like, where should you be going with it? The stuff I would look at, and again, this is going to be dependent on the size of your business and where you're at. But the components I would personally looking at when it comes to these three things would be some kind of components towards making money, you know, making more money for your business and, delivering a phenomenal service to your clients. Like everything else, going from 0 to 5K to 10K to 20K per month is probably a distraction. So, like, that to do list, you really should be looking at like what's going to make me money today, what's going to get me calls booking in, what's going to get me referrals from my current clients, what's going to get me more leads. And I'd really kind of obsess about that and maybe even have like one day a week, for example, that's very specific towards just clients, client check-ins, and then you just spend like 1 hour at the end of the day just to go through, just touch base and check in with your current clients. And then the rest of your time really should be going down towards like, how can I get my business to make more money? How can I aggressively force it to make me more money? A lot of the time with those tasks is having really impactful conversations, creating good content that generates conversations, generate leads, and a lot of this should now stem back down to getting more people to know about your coaching, what you do and how you do it, and moving people into sales calls and buying conversations. That's really where I would be building and structuring my calendar if I was starting from zero and I was wanting to hit my first 5K month completely online. You can get distracted, you can do stuff, and I'm saying this with the pain in my voice, having done this 10 years ago. You can spend an awful lot of time doing stuff that's not really making money, like creating a logo, build choosing your brand colors, creating a really nice graphic, like all of these stuff you can do. But in the grand scheme of things, is that going to make you money like this week? Is that going to make you money this month? In the grand scheme of things, the answer is no. And if the answer is no, it shouldn't be on a to-do list or only three things. It shouldn't be there. I'd much rather, for our students, I'd much rather they get their business making really good money, making their first 5K, their first 10K month. And then at that point on, it's so easy to just like outsource those things to a professional. If you really need a logo at that point, so easy to outsource that to someone on Fiverr or Upwork for like fairly good, like fairly low cost, and get a better output done than if you were to do it yourself, right? That's just where I would take all of this. Like that's where I would take it. That's what my thought process would be when it comes to what should I be doing. Like it should be to some point of another making money, right? Like money solves a lot of problems in business. Most problems in business can be solved by just making more money. So that's where I would place a lot of your focus, a lot of your productivity. And actually, I would just go heavy on that, right? I would make that list of three things. And I would even just clear that to do list every single day, open a new to do list and just think to yourself, what what are the levers I can do today? What are the tasks that's going to make me more money, close me more clients? I would keep them very consistent every single kind of week, right? I wouldn't go and overhaul things every single week and every single day. I'd really focus on having conversations, really focus on um, creating content that sparks conversations and moves things forward and getting more people to know about what you do and how you do it. And then your clients, should be most of your time, most of the week, most of your normal days should be 20 minutes, 30 minutes. You check your messages, you check in, touch base, and send them a message. They're paying for a resolve. They're paying for an hour, maybe 1 hour and a half of your time per week. They're not paying for you to be there 24/7 checking in on them. They're not children. So that's where I would really be taking things if I wanted to make enforce aggressive growth, go monk mode and make an awful lot of progress. There's very tactical videos in terms of what those tasks should be and how you can fill out your calendar somewhere around the channel. You can find in videos. If you want more one-to-one help with growing your coaching business in 2025, so you can guarantee your growth, in the description of the video will be a link where you can find out a little bit more about how I work with clients one-to-one to guarantee them results. And if you think it's a good fit, you can inquire more from that link. Any other questions? Let me know.